Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going to be comparing a 2022 Toyota Camry TRD to a 2022 Honda Accord with the 2.0 turbo 4-cylinder. Before we get into the video though, I do want to mention if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get right into the comparison. Starting things off under the hood of the Camry TRD, we have a naturally aspirated 3.5 liter V6 that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It's good for 301 horsepower and then 267 pound-feet of torque. And this is a front-wheel drive car. It's not all-wheel drive. That's a question that a lot of people ask with the Camry TRD. Is they're all like, "Hey, is it all-wheel drive?" And it's like, no. You have to get a 4-cylinder Camry to get all-wheel drive. Anyways, going over to the Accord Sport, we have a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder that goes through a 10-speed automatic transmission. It's good for 252 horsepower and then 273 pound-feet of torque. So it is down on horsepower and torque compared to the Camry, but they're surprisingly similar from an acceleration perspective. I don't know how, I don't know why, but it is what it is. Now going over the front end of the Camry TRD, you guys can see there with the sharp body lines on the hood. And then notice here with the headlights, definitely, starting to look a little bit dated at this point, but I still think it looks great from an aesthetic perspective. And then you can see there with all of the venting on the front end, you've got your Toyota logo there, front and center. It's like the only chrome bit on this. Notice some red accenting. That's also part of the TRD package. And then you can see how aggressive the front end is. Just basically Camry with a body kit is the best way to look at the Camry TRD, and also an exhaust and a little bit of a suspension upgrade as well, and we'll kind of get into that in a moment. But popping over to the Accord, you guys can see this looks a little bit more normal is the best way to put it. So notice the body lines there on the hood, and then you can see here with the lights that were on for just a moment, they are LEDs. Definitely looks a little bit more modern. And then you can see the fog light down below, and then notice there with the how the bumper is kind of like shaped. Looks pretty interesting. And then you got the Honda logo there in the center. Again, finished in chrome, so it pops out a little bit more. And again, it kind of has more of this luxury car look. Now popping over to the TRD, you guys can see the wheels on the car. Again, definitely has that aggressive, sporty appearance. And they actually do upgrade the front brakes on the Camry TRD, so it has better stopping power than a regular Camry. And you can see also brake calipers painted red, and then you'll notice with the TRD logo there in the center, that's also been painted red. And this is just kind of like a theme with just TRD vehicles in general, whether it's a Camry TRD or something like a Tacoma or Tundras. They'll have some red accenting on the car, but the Camry seems to kind of go a little bit further with that. And then you guys can see with the fender how that's shaped, and then notice with the side skirt, and then again we got another little red pinstripe on that. I imagine that's just going to collect quite a few rocks, I imagine. And then you can see again with the red accenting there with the back tire and wheel set up with the Camry TRD. And then notice the red continues there onto the rear diffuser as well, which is a pretty cool part of the package. And then if we pop over here, you guys can see the full side view of the Camry TRD, which again, I definitely think that it's a great looking car from a side perspective. Definitely has this nice aggressive appearance. You can see a little spoiler there on the back. We'll get into that in just a moment. But going from that over to the Accord, you guys can see again, normal kind of luxury appearance with the wheels, right? With the silver there on the top, the black below it, and then notice that it just kind of flows. It looks like a blade almost. It's pretty interesting and intricate, but again, it looks like a wheel you'd see on a luxury car, like I said. And other than that, there's blacked out mirror caps, and there's not much else to go over with the Accord. They kind of keep it pretty simple from a stylistic perspective. And here's the key fob for the Camry TRD. So just like other Toyota models, if you press the lock function a couple times, hold it down, then it'll do the remote start. And then notice we have our Toyota first aid kit. Gotta have that in every car. Camry TRD specific floor mat, which is pretty cool. And underneath here, you guys can see you've got all the tools and everything if you get stuck on the side of the road. Very important. And because it's still a Camry, it's practical from a storage space perspective with the trunk. And this is it's not the biggest size sedan you can get from Toyota, but it's a larger size sedan, so storage space is solid overall. And then finishing things up with the rest of the Camry TRD, we got to talk about the spoiler again. So yeah, you got this giant spoiler. I mean, for what the car is, it's giant. Okay, spoiler on the back. I think it looks cool though. All the badges have been blacked out except for the TRD badge, which again, red. And then you do have an exhaust specific to this car. It does sound beefy for a Camry. Go watch my TRD review if you want to hear it. But notice the diffuser there on the back end. And that's going to be one benefit to the Camry over the Accord, is that it still uses a V6, and so it definitely, again, sounds a little bit more muscular than, well, especially with that exhaust, a lot more muscular. And then notice here with the remote start on the Accord, a little bit more user-friendly with that functionality because it's on the key fob itself. But you can see popping here into the trunk area. Shape kind of interesting with how they have it, but it's, and you can see all the same tools underneath. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting how it's shaped. It almost looks like it's smaller because of the shape, but they're pretty similar from a storage space perspective. And then going from that to the rest of the rear, you can see we've got a little spoiler, a lot more subtle than what you have on the Camry, frankly. And you'll notice that with the styling here with the Accord, again, everything's a little bit more subtle. And then you can see with all of the badges that these are all chrome versus the badges on the Camry being blacked out or red. And then again, pretty normal with the coverings over the exhaust tips. And again, it's not a loud, obnoxious car. The Camry's not loud and obnoxious, but it's not. This definitely is not. This is a pretty quiet car from an exhaust perspective. But popping back over to the Camry TRD, you can see here with the trim that goes to the door handle, and then that padding on the side of the door panel, I thought was very interesting how it felt. Seats though are cool with how they look. So you can see you've got a lot of red accenting, and then you got like that cloth trim in the center. So like this is. So if you looked at this from like a Camry lineup perspective, this would be below an X. It wouldn't be an XSE. It would be below an XSE, basically. And then you can see there with the storage space, no cup holder armrest. Got some nice stitching there. So it's kind of like they threw a bunch of sporty items on, not quite a base model Camry, but like, you know, not a high-end version of the car. And then notice here with the Accord, and same thing with the metallic trim to the door handle. Weird that they have that similar, but notice the padding in the armrest a little bit nicer. Same thing with the seats, right? They don't look as cool, frankly, but just the material use and everything is a little bit more upscale. Definitely just feels like you're just in a more high-end vehicle. And then you can see there with the legroom and everything, got some charging ports as well. And then we actually have a cup holder armrest, whereas the Camry TRD does not. It's kind of an interesting difference there. And then here's the front door panel. Again, notice the strip that goes in the door handle, and then again that padding. Not sure how to feel about it. Got all of your window controls, got the mirror adjustments. Those mirrors do have blind spot monitoring. And then with the TRD logo there at the top of the seat, and then you can see the piping and stitching all over, and then again the red seat belts. And then notice the power adjustments there on the side. Bolstering's definitely solid. Then you get your Camry TRD logo down below, pedal layout, which the pedals look very nice. And then I just got controls like stability control, the lights, the trunk, gas cap, all that normal stuff. And then some more stitching right there. A little bit of padding as well, looks nice. And popping back over to the Accord, you can see again that luxury theme kind of continues. So just look at how everything looks a little bit more upscale, right? And then same thing with the seats. Both of them have weird looking headrests though, with like the shape of the headrest. I'm sure there's a reason. But yeah, look at the padding and then power adjustments on the side of the seat. You can see the pedal layout's nice too. So the Accord does have nice pedals. Got your hood release right there. And that's for the safety tech stability control. And yeah, you know, so nice so far. Popping back into the Camry TRD. You can see the little startup animation there. Takes a second, but it's cool. It's like TR, well, it's R, it's like R TRD. But anyways, there is the steering wheel. So you can see with the stitching on the center portion. And then notice it has practical stuff like cruise control, lane keep assist. You got paddle shifters on the back for the 8-speed automatic, controls for the center stack, voice command, volume controls. You know, turn signal light stock, windshield wiper stock. Again, all the normal works. And then I like how the gauge cluster is red and aggressive to match the TRD theme. I think that's definitely something cool that they've done. And then you can see you've got that center screen there, which you can see different bits of vehicle information. Nothing too exciting, pretty normal setup that you have in every single Camry. So they haven't really done anything specific to the TRD package. And then here's the infotainment system. So first off, you can see the backup camera. This thing's interesting with Toyota and Hondas. In their cars, they still haven't like upgraded them to nicer backup cameras. Like just the cars, like the new trucks and SUVs have nice backup cameras, but the cars, they're like, yeah, you know, we'll get to it eventually. But as for the rest of the infotainment system, response time with the buttons on the side is great. I like how they have a bunch of physical buttons. Makes it a little bit more user friendly. And then response time on the screen is solid. Some things take a second to load up, but overall it's an easy self-explanatory system. So I don't really have any complaints. Got your hazard light button with some vents on either side. Single zone climate, and then Camry TRD. And then notice how there's like just an off button. That's all it does. It doesn't turn it back on. You have to twist the dial. It's kind of interesting how they have that set up. I don't quite understand it, but you know, Toyota thinks it's gonna work. Toyota thinks it's gonna work. You got some charging ports there, and then some storage space. Shifter for the 8-speed automatic. It's a TRD shifter, just like what you get in a Tacoma or Tundra. And then notice the drive modes. So yes, you still have an eco mode in the sporty Camry. There's a sport, and then there's a normal mode. Notice the sport turns the screen red, so you can have all red in the gauge cluster if you want. Auto hold, you got your parking brake, couple cup holders, and then center console. Notice the same padding on it. I don't know. Again, I don't like it. I remember that. And you can see there on the dash with the stitching. And then notice the trim up above. You can see the glove box. It's practical, it's big. And then popping up top, we don't really have anything really exciting happening up here either. Just normal headliner. It does have a sunglass holder that I remember fell down like a few seconds after. Yeah, you can see it fall down there. It's like, what? But manual mirror dimmer. Now here's a window sticker for the TRD. And the thing that's interesting is the TRD has not increased in price since it was initially released. But you know, a lot of people are going to be like, well, of course, it shouldn't have. But like everything's increased in price so much. And this, because I reviewed a 2020 and it has the same MSRP as what it had back in 2020. So I guess if you can get one of these at MSRP, then you're like beating inflation in a sense, because I'm sure the used ones are selling for crazy amounts. And again, like I said, the price hasn't increased like at all. So you can see after options and everything, $33,600. Go watch my 2020 review and it's the same price. But the thing that's interesting about the Accord is there's always an interesting chime. Well, it's just Hondas when you get in. You guys can see a little start up there with the gauge cluster. But here's the steering wheel. And again, notice it's more tuned towards like a luxury appearance. So you still have like adaptive cruise control, steering assistance, nicer paddle shifters in the back, that's for sure. Got controls for the center stack as well. You can see the turn signal light stock and then windshield wiper stock. But yeah, just notice it has more of a luxury appearance to it. And then going to the gauge cluster, same thing, right? You've got more screens, so it looks a little bit more, I guess, modern, I suppose is the best way to put it. And I think they did a really good job, frankly, with just the overall appearance of the screen and, you know, usability as well. And the other thing to mention here with this gauge cluster is, I guess this is a little bit of a critique, because I wish they would have just gone all screen, frankly. I don't know why they did half analog, half screen. I think it's kind of like, you know, how Toyota does it, where it's like a very small screen. It's like, okay, that makes sense. But with Honda, it's like, okay, come on, just go all out. Same thing with the camera system. Again, like it works, but man, it's interesting. Like I don't know, I feel like they should start doing a little bit more with that, especially with what Kia and Hyundai do with their camera systems in their cars. But you can see the infotainment system looks a little bit more modern, but it's a similar theme, right? With the buttons there on the side, physical buttons, a bunch of them. And then you've got, you know, responsive touchscreen. And the units like look so, I wonder if they're like the same manufacturer makes both of those touchscreens. That would be hilarious because they look so similar. But notice here, dual zone climate, heated seats for the front. So we got like a few more luxury features. And then you can see there with the charging ports. Down below, a little bit of extra storage space. And of course, it doesn't want to close. And then notice the red stop start button. You can see the shifter here for the 10-speed auto. So I was looking through my old videos, and they used to use the buttons in the Accord, but they switched back to a regular shifter because I guess people complained. And then notice the Econ and then the Sport mode, auto stop start, and then you've got the parking brake with the brake hold. And then here's the center console. So you can see the storage space within that. And again, look at the material use on the dash and everything. Just kind of looks more like the luxury side. Because the Camry has a bigger glove box. It's also another interesting distinction. And then of course got our sunglass holder at the top. You can see the light control as well. And, you know, nothing too crazy. From price perspective, it's about the same price as a Camry TRD, roughly. A little bit cheaper. It depends on exactly how you equip it. Gosh, can't talk. Anyways, let's just sum things up. So first off, I think the Camry wins in the exterior looks department, right? But I like sporty looking vehicles, frankly. And so if you're, want a little bit more of a luxury, normal appearance, then yeah, Accord's going to give that to you. But yeah, I think the Camry looks a little bit cooler. Definitely sounds better with the exhaust that comes with the TRD package. And like I said, from acceleration perspective, they're very close. You'd expect the Camry to be faster because it has more horsepower, a little bit less torque, but way more horsepower. But it's not. They're very similar. That Accord is surprisingly quick. So maybe they underrate it from a power perspective. And then interior, I would give the win to the Accord because it just looks a little bit nice, a little bit more upscale. And so they're very close in price, right? And so it really just depends on kind of what you're looking for. If you want kind of like a sportier feel and you are okay with paying a little bit of a premium for that because ultimately you're getting a slightly less equipped car for the same amount of money, but you're getting all those, performance upgrades that are mostly aesthetic, right? There is some performance benefit to it, but I mean, it's a Camry, okay? And then on the Accord side of things, right, the value is that you're getting kind of more of like a luxury experience with the car. So it just depends on what you would prefer. I prefer the sporty side most of the time, but there's a lot of, times where I'm driving on the highway and I'm like, I don't care about any of this sporty stuff. I just want a nice luxury experience. And so, there's obviously going to be groups for both. Let me know which car you guys would pick.